Hi, and welcome to English Fabulae. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
Imagine a person from history who had a huge impact on the world. This person is Mohammed. He lived over 1,000 years ago, but his life and teachings still influence millions of people across the globe today. He is known as the founder of Islam, one of the world's major religions. But his story is bigger than just religion. It's a story about leadership, society, and the power of one person to change history. This book will explore the life of Mohammed and his important influence on the world. To understand his life, we use historical sources. These are old writings and stories from a long time ago. These sources are valuable, but they are also limited. We don't have all the details we might want. Some historical information is missing, and the sources we do have can sometimes be interpreted in different ways. It's like looking at old documents. They can be difficult to read and understand completely. So, we need to study these sources carefully and understand that our picture of his life is based on what we can learn from them. It is important to remember that people see Mohammed's life from different angles. For many, he is a central figure in their religion, a prophet. For historians, he is also a political and social leader who shaped the course of history in Arabia and beyond. These different views are important. This book respects these diverse interpretations but will focus on a historical perspective. This book aims to be neutral and balanced. We will look at Mohammed's life using historical information. This means we will focus on what happened in history and why. We will not offer religious interpretations or take any specific religious viewpoint. Our goal is to understand his life based on historical facts and analysis, without adding religious beliefs or opinions. We want to provide a clear and historical account of his life, based on the information available to us. This book is based on historical information and does not take any side or offer religious interpretations. 2. Early life in Mecca. Muhammad was born in Mecca around the year 570. This year is sometimes called the Year of the Elephant. People say it was the year when an army with elephants tried to attack Mecca, but this may not be exactly true. He was born into a family called Banu Hashim. This family was part of a bigger group, the Quraysh tribe, which was very important in Mecca. Mecca was a city in western Arabia. The Quraysh tribe was strong there. Mohammed's family, Banu Hashim, was respected but maybe not very rich when he was young. Mohammed is an Arabic name that means praised or praiseworthy. Muhammad's life started with sadness. His father, Abdullah, died before Mohammed was born. When Mohammed was only 6 years old, his mother, Amina, also died. This made him an orphan, a child without parents. After his mother died, Mohammed was looked after by his grandfather, Abd al-Muttalib. His grandfather was an important leader in Mecca. But when Mohammed was 8, his grandfather also passed away. Then his uncle, Abu Talib, took care of him. Abu Talib became the new leader of Banu Hashim. Muhammad grew up in his uncle's house. Abu Talib and his brothers helped Mohammed learn. One uncle taught him skills like using a bow and arrow and fighting with swords. Another uncle, Abbas, helped him find work. Muhammad started working as a merchant. He traveled with trade groups called caravans. He went to places like Syria to sell goods. People in Mecca knew Muhammad as Al-Amin, which means the faithful or the honest one. He was known for being very trustworthy in his work. When Muhammad was 25 years old, he married a woman named Khadija. Khadija was a businesswoman and was about 40 years old. She was a rich and respected woman in Mecca. She had hired Muhammad to manage her caravans because she heard he was very good at business. Khadija was impressed by Muhammad's good work and honesty. She asked him to marry her and he agreed. They had a strong and happy marriage. Muhammad and Khadija stayed married until she died. He did not marry any other woman while she was alive. Mecca in Muhammad's time was an important place for trade. It was also a religious center. Many people in Mecca believed in many gods. They worshipped these gods at a special building called the Kaaba. Inside the Kaaba, there were statues of different gods. However, some people in Mecca, called Hanifs, believed in only one God even before Muhammad started to preach his message. Mecca was a mix of different beliefs and ways of life when Muhammad was growing up. 3. The first revelations. Muhammad often went to a cave in the mountains near Mecca. The cave was called Hira. He liked to spend time alone there, thinking and praying. He was searching for peace and understanding. One day when Muhammad was 40 years old, something amazing happened in the cave. It was the year 610. While he was in Hira, he had a powerful experience. He said that the angel Gabriel came to him. Gabriel showed Muhammad a cloth with words written on it. He told Muhammad to read. Muhammad said, "I cannot read." The angel held him tightly and told him again to read. This happened 3 times. Finally, Gabriel spoke the words and Muhammad could remember them. These were the first words of the Quran. When it was finished, Muhammad was afraid and confused. He didn't understand what had happened. He felt like something very powerful had touched him. He left the cave and went quickly back to his home in Mecca. He went to his wife Khadija. He was shaking and asked her to cover him with a blanket. When he felt calmer, he told Khadija everything that had happened in the cave. He was worried that maybe it was a bad spirit. Khadija listened carefully. She was a strong and wise woman. She believed in Muhammad and trusted him. She told him that she thought it was a message from God, not something evil. She supported him and gave him comfort. Khadija also went to see her cousin, Waraka ibn Nawfal. Waraka was an old man who knew about religions and old books. When Khadija told him about Muhammad's experience, Waraka was very happy. He said that Gabriel was the same angel who had come to Moses, another prophet from long ago. Waraka told Khadija that Muhammad was going to be a prophet for his people. Khadija's belief was very important to Muhammad. She was the first person to accept his message. Soon after, other people close to Muhammad also started to believe. His young cousin Ali, his good friend Abu Bakr, and Zayd, who was like a son to him, all became his first followers. The first messages that Muhammad received were about God. They talked about one God, not many gods like people in Mecca believed. The messages warned people about punishment if they did not believe in God, but also promised good things for those who did. It was the beginning of a new religion, Islam, and Muhammad was starting to share these revelations with those closest to him. 4. Opposition and persecution. In the beginning, not many people in Mecca paid attention to Muhammad's new ideas. but this changed when he started to talk about their gods in a negative way. The leaders of Mecca, the Quraysh, began to oppose him. There were several reasons for this opposition. Firstly, Muhammad was saying that there is only one God, Allah. This was different from what most Meccans believed. They worshipped many gods and goddesses. Secondly, Muhammad criticized the way Meccan society worked. He spoke against some of their traditions and values. The Quraysh felt that Muhammad was attacking their way of life and the beliefs of their ancestors. They also worried about their power and status. If people stopped worshipping the old gods and followed Muhammad, the Quraysh leaders might lose their importance in Mecca. At first, the Quraysh tried to argue with Muhammad. They challenged him to show them miracles, like bringing water from the desert. But Muhammad said that nature itself was proof of God's power. They made fun of him and asked why God had not given him treasures if he was a real prophet. They even asked him to go to paradise and bring back writings from God. But Muhammad explained that the Quran itself was a miracle. When arguments did not work, the Quraysh became harsher. They started to insult Muhammad and his followers. Some people in Mecca even tried to hurt Muhammad physically when he was praying at the Kaaba. The Quraysh also tried to bribe Muhammad. They offered him a position of power and wealth if he would stop preaching against their gods, but Muhammad refused. He said he could not stop speaking the truth, even if they gave him everything. When bribery failed, the Quraysh tried another way. They went to Abu Talib, Muhammad's uncle, who was protecting him. They told Abu Talib to stop Muhammad. They said they could not tolerate Muhammad's insults to their gods and traditions. Abu Talib was in a difficult position. He was from the Quraysh himself, but he also cared for his nephew. At first, Abu Talib asked Muhammad to be less open with his message. However, Muhammad was firm and said he could not stop, even if it meant great hardship. Seeing Muhammad's strong belief, Abu Talib decided to continue protecting him, no matter what the Quraysh said. As the Quraysh's opposition grew, so did the difficulties for Muhammad's followers. Many of the first Muslims were poor people, slaves, or women. These people did not have high social status and were vulnerable. The Quraysh started to persecute these early Muslims. We know that life became very hard for them, although the exact details of this persecution are not fully clear from historical records. To escape this growing danger, Muhammad decided to send some of his followers away to a safer place. In the year 615, a group of Muslims migrated to Abyssinia, which is in Africa. Abyssinia was ruled by a Christian king known for being just. Muhammad believed that his followers would be safe there. The king welcomed the Muslim migrants and protected them. The Quraysh were angry that the Muslims had found safety. They sent people to Abyssinia to ask the king to send the Muslims back to Mecca, but the king listened to the Muslims and refused to send them back. He allowed them to stay in peace in his kingdom. There is also a story about an event called the Satanic Verses. According to this story, at one point, Muhammad was hoping to find a way to get along better with the Quraysh. It is said that while reciting verses from the Quran, Satan made him say words that praised some of the Meccan goddesses. This made the Quraysh happy, and there was a feeling of possible agreement between Muhammad and the Meccans. However, the story continues that Muhammad later realized these words were not from God, but from Satan. He then corrected these verses, and the Quran continued to criticize the Meccan gods. This incident is a complex topic. Some historical accounts mention it, while some religious scholars reject it, believing that a prophet like Muhammad could not be tricked by Satan in this way. It is important to understand that this event is viewed and interpreted differently by different people. 5. Moving to Medina. Life in Mecca was becoming very difficult for Muhammad and his followers. People in Mecca did not like his teachings and were against them. Around this time, something very important happened to Muhammad. It is called the Isra and Miraj. Some stories say that one night Muhammad traveled from Mecca to Jerusalem in a single night. From Jerusalem, he then went up to the heavens. This journey is a significant event in his life story. While things were hard in Mecca, people in another city called Yathrib, which would later be known as Medina, heard about Muhammad's teachings. Some people from Yathrib came to Mecca and met Muhammad. They were from tribes called Banu Khazraj and Banu Aus in Yathrib. They were interested in his message, and some of them became Muslims. These people from Yathrib invited Muhammad to come and live in their city. They thought that Muhammad could help bring peace between different groups in Yathrib who were often fighting. They promised to protect him and his followers if they moved to Yathrib. This invitation was very important for Muhammad and the Muslims. Over the next few years, more people from Yathrib became Muslims. They made promises to Muhammad in meetings at a place called Aqaba near Mecca. These promises, called the Pledges of Aqaba, were agreements to support Muhammad and Islam. The people of Yathrib were ready to welcome Muhammad and his followers to their city. Because of the growing danger in Mecca and the invitation from Yathrib, Muhammad decided that it was time for the Muslims to leave Mecca and move to Yathrib. This migration is called the Hijra. It was a very important turning point. Muslims in Mecca started to travel secretly to Yathrib. Muhammad was one of the last to leave Mecca. He left with his close friend Abu Bakr. When Muhammad and the Muslims arrived in Yathrib, they were welcomed by the people there. The city was renamed Medina, which means the city, short for Madinat al-Nabi, the city of the Prophet. In Medina, Muhammad started to build a new community. One of the first things he did was to build a mosque. This mosque was a place for prayer and also a meeting place for the community. To create a peaceful and organized society in Medina, Muhammad created a document known as the Constitution of Medina. This was an agreement between all the different groups in Medina, including the Muslim migrants from Mecca, the people of Medina who became Muslims, and the Jewish tribes living there. The Constitution of Medina set out rules for how different groups should live together, protect each other, and solve problems. It was a way to build a strong and united community in Medina. Moving to Medina was a new beginning for Muhammad and the early Muslims. It was the start of a new phase in the spread of Islam. 6. Conflict and alliances. After moving to Medina, Muhammad and his followers faced new challenges. The people of Mecca were angry because Muslims had left Mecca. They also took the Muslims' houses and things in Mecca. This started conflicts between the people of Mecca and the Muslims in Medina. One of the first big fights was the Battle of Badr. The Meccans were traveling with a trade caravan, carrying goods to sell. Muslims wanted to take this caravan to get back some of their things that the Meccans had taken. In 624, a small group of Muslims, about 300 people, went to Badr to wait for the caravan. The Meccans sent an army to protect the caravan. The Muslim army was much smaller than the Meccan army. Despite this, the Muslims won the Battle of Badr. This victory was important for the Muslims and made them stronger in Medina. 1 year later, in 625, the Meccans came back to fight again in the Battle of Uhud. This time, the Meccan army was bigger. At first, the Muslims were winning, but then some Muslim soldiers did not follow orders. Because of this, the Meccans won this battle. Many Muslims were hurt or killed in the Battle of Uhud. It was a difficult time for the Muslim community. In Medina, there were also Jewish tribes. At first, Muhammad tried to live peacefully with them. He made an agreement called the Constitution of Medina, which said everyone in Medina should live together peacefully. However, some Jewish tribes did not keep this agreement. One Jewish tribe, Banu Qaynuqa, had a problem with a Muslim woman in the market. After this, Muhammad asked the Banu Qaynuqa tribe to leave Medina. Another Jewish tribe, Banu Nadir, was also asked to leave Medina later because of disagreements. The biggest attack on Medina was the Battle of the Trench in 627. The Meccans, with help from other groups, brought a very large army to Medina, about 10,000 soldiers. The Muslims in Medina were much fewer, only about 3,000. To protect Medina, the Muslims dug a big trench around the city. This idea came from Solomon, who was from Persia. The Meccan army could not cross the trench easily. They tried to attack for 2 weeks, but they could not get into Medina. Finally, the Meccan army had to go back home. This battle was a victory for the Muslims because they defended Medina. After the Battle of the Trench, there was another Jewish tribe in Medina, Banu Qurayza. During the battle, this tribe did not help the Muslims and seemed to be helping the Meccans. After the Meccans left, the Muslims attacked the Banu Qurayza tribe. After a long fight, the Banu Qurayza tribe surrendered. In 628, Muhammad and his followers wanted to go to Mecca for pilgrimage, which is a religious journey. They went to a place called Hudaybiyah near Mecca. The Meccans did not want them to enter Mecca. After some talks, Muhammad and the Meccans made an agreement called the Treaty of Hudaybiyah. This treaty was for 10 years of peace between the Muslims and the Meccans. It also said that Muslims could come to Mecca for pilgrimage the next year. Even though some Muslims were not happy with this treaty, it was an important step towards peace and later victories. 7. Triumph and return. After years of conflict, the time came for Muhammad to return to Mecca. In 630, he gathered a large army of around 10,000 Muslim soldiers. They marched towards Mecca. The people of Mecca knew they could not fight such a big army, so they decided not to resist. Muhammad entered Mecca without much fighting. This event is known as the Conquest of Mecca. He showed he was in control of the city. Instead of revenge, Muhammad declared an amnesty. This meant he forgave most of the people of Mecca for their past actions against him and the Muslims. However, a few people who had been very cruel or caused a lot of trouble were not forgiven. One of the first things Muhammad did in Mecca was to go to the Kaaba. The Kaaba was a very important building in Mecca, and it contained many idols, statues of gods that people in Mecca used to worship. Muhammad and his followers destroyed all these idols inside and around the Kaaba. This was a symbolic act showing that Islam was now the main religion in Mecca, and the old gods were no longer important. Some stories say that there were paintings inside the Kaaba, including paintings of Mary and Jesus. It is said that Muhammad ordered to erase all paintings except perhaps those of Mary and Jesus, but other accounts say all pictures were removed. After the conquest of Mecca, Islam started to spread more quickly across Arabia. Many tribes who had previously been against Muhammad now saw his power and decided to accept Islam. One of the important tribes that initially opposed Muhammad after the conquest of Mecca was the Hawazin. They gathered their forces to fight the Muslims. Muhammad led his army to meet them in the valley of Hunain. The Battle of Hunain was initially difficult for the Muslims, as they were surprised by the Hawazin army. However, in the end, the Muslims won the battle. They captured many prisoners and goods. After Hunain, Muhammad focused on the city of Taif, another city that had been unfriendly to him. He besieged Taif, meaning he surrounded the city to stop people and supplies from going in or out. The siege of Taif lasted for some weeks, but the Muslims could not get into the city because it had strong walls. Eventually, Muhammad decided to stop the siege and return to Medina. Later, the people of Taif understood that Islam was becoming very powerful in Arabia. They realized that it was better to join the Muslims than to fight them, so they also accepted Islam. In 630, Muhammad also led an expedition to Tabuk, a place in the north, near the Byzantine Empire. The reason for this expedition is not entirely clear. Some say it was to respond to a possible threat from the Byzantines or to show Muslim strength. Muhammad gathered a large army for this expedition as well. They marched to Tabuk, but they did not meet any Byzantine army there. However, Muhammad made agreements with some local leaders in the area. These leaders agreed to accept Muslim rule and pay a tax called jizya. This expedition showed Muslim power in the northern parts of Arabia too. Finally, in 632, Muhammad performed his farewell pilgrimage to Mecca. This was his last pilgrimage, and it is very important in Islam. During this pilgrimage, Muhammad gave a famous sermon to a huge crowd of Muslims. In this sermon, he taught them important principles of Islam. He spoke against usury, which is charging too much interest on loans. He also spoke against vendettas, which are cycles of revenge killings between families or tribes. He emphasized the brotherhood of all Muslims and reminded them of the importance of their faith. He also confirmed the Islamic lunar calendar. This farewell pilgrimage and sermon are seen as a summary of Muhammad's teachings and a guide for Muslims. After this pilgrimage, Muhammad returned to Medina, marking the end of his major travels and military campaigns. 8. Final days and legacy. In his last days, Muhammad became ill. He had a bad headache and felt weak. He stayed in the house of his wife Aisha. People were worried about him. He led prayers for some time, but then he became too weak. During his illness, he gave advice to his followers. He reminded them to be kind and just. Muhammad died on June 8, 632 in Medina. He was about 62 years old. His death was a big loss for the Muslim community. He was buried in Aisha's house in Medina. Later, the Prophet's mosque was built around his burial place. Today, many Muslims visit his tomb in Medina. After Muhammad's death, there was a question of who would lead the Muslim community. Some people thought Ali, Muhammad's cousin, should be the leader. Others thought Abu Bakr, a close friend of Muhammad, should lead. Eventually, Abu Bakr became the first leader, called Caliph. This was the start of the Caliphate. Muhammad's actions and teachings had a big impact. During his life, most of Arabia became Muslim. After his death, Islam continued to spread quickly. In a short time, Muslim armies conquered large areas. They took lands in the Middle East, North Africa, and Persia. This was the beginning of a large Islamic empire. Muhammad's legacy is very important in history. He united many Arab tribes under a new religion. His teachings shaped a new culture and civilization. His message of one God and a just society had a lasting influence on the world. Even today, billions of people follow Islam, the religion he started.
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world. Thank you.